What happens when genius is hidden in the very place society forgets? When the brightest mind in the room is the one everyone steps over on the street. In the noisy heart of Lagos, beneath peeling billboards, rusted zinc rooftops, and the restless hum of survival, lived a boy the world never paused to notice. 17 years old. Homeless. Hungry. Invisible. But inside his mind, equations danced. Power grids made sense. And systems that defeated billion-naira engineers unraveled like simple puzzles. Miles away, in a skyscraper built from wealth older than the boy himself, a billionaire was watching his empire crumble. A power grid failure costing millions every day. Foreign experts flown across continents. Dozens of degrees. No solution. Just failure and fear. No one knew that the answer wasn't in the boardrooms, the simulations, or the billion-dollar labs. It was sitting under a billboard in Ajij, scribbling equations on newspaper scraps. This isn't just a story about poverty. It's a story about brilliance, destiny, and the moment two worlds collide, one drowning in pride, the other surviving on hope. And when they finally meet, everything changes. Before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Is it morning in Nairobi, evening in Accra, or midnight in Toronto? Drop your location in the comments below, hit like, and subscribe to Stories by the King, where every story carries a heartbeat, and every truth carries light. Now, lean in. Because this isn't just about a homeless boy solving a crisis. It's about what happens when hidden brilliance finally meets opportunity. The morning sun, a shy painter, brushed strokes of gold across the makeshift structures of Ajij, waking a symphony of distant Okoda horns and the faint scent of sizzling akara. In the heart of this sprawling, restless metropolis, on a forgotten patch of cracked earth beneath a peeling billboard, sat David. His world was a tattered, borrowed engineering textbook, a stubby pencil, and the gnawing hunger that had become a familiar companion in the relentless bustle of Lagos. At 17, David carried the weight of a wisdom that poverty often bestows, a keen eye for patterns, a mind that thrived on calculating the impossible stresses on rickety bridges, and a spirit unbroken despite the cold concrete slab that was his bed. He was a phantom in the surging city, a shadow glimpsed by few, yet his mind was a universe of equations and electrical theories, a place where the grid's complexity dissolved into elegant solutions. He dreamt of infrastructure that never failed, power systems that hummed with quiet efficiency, and a future where his genius could lift his younger sister, Grace, from the same harsh reality they endured near the lagoon. But for now, his most immediate concern was the rusty, perpetually leaking pipe at the communal water point, its erratic pressure a daily challenge to his patience and hydraulic intuition. The city, vibrant and cruel, roared its indifferent song around him, oblivious to the dormant power within the young man, a power soon to be unleashed by an unforeseen industrial crisis. Miles away, in a skyscraper on Victoria Island that pierced the smoggy skyline like a diamond spear, lived Mr. Richard, a man whose wealth was as vast as the Atlantic Ocean bordering the city. His name echoed in Lagos boardrooms and national news headlines, a titan of the energy sector whose empire powered entire states. Yet, even kings who rule the grid have their nightmares. For months, his grandest project, a revolutionary smart city designed to be a beacon of African innovation in Eco-Atlantic, had been crippled by a mysterious, intermittent power failure. Millions of dollars were hemorrhaging daily, deadlines were a distant memory, and the finest electrical engineers from global firms had flown into Lagos, bewildered and defeated. Their sophisticated simulations, their countless hours of thermal and stress analysis, all had failed to pinpoint the elusive flaw that kept the lights dim and the vital cooling system dormant. Mr. Richard, a man accustomed to having solutions bought and delivered instantly, found himself adrift in a sea of corporate uncertainty. His usually sharp eyes, now shadowed with worry, stared blankly at the impressive view of the Lagos skyline, a city he had helped power, but one that now seemed to mock his inability to solve his own multi-billion-naira crisis. His empire, once unshakable, now trembled on the brink of an invisible abyss hidden deep within the city's complex infrastructure. The pressure mounted with each passing day. The stress of the financial losses and the public failure eroded Mr. Richards' famous composure. He snapped at assistants and shouted into his phone, demanding answers that the technology couldn't provide. The Eco-Atlantic Smart City, once a symbol of his visionary leadership, was quickly becoming a monument to his public failure. His daughter, Sarah, a bright, compassionate woman who managed the family foundation's community outreach, often visited him at his office. She saw the lines of exhaustion etched deeper around his eyes, the heavy slump of his shoulders even in his custom-tailored suit. Sarah, unlike her father, spent significant time volunteering in various education projects, including a small technical skills center near the Ojota bus park. She had seen the raw, unpolished brilliance that could blossom even in the harshest environments of Lagos. While her father trusted only established degrees and Western certifications, Sarah held a quiet, radical belief in the untapped intellectual potential residing in the city's ghettos. She listened to the endless, technical explanations of the foreign consultants, their jargon-filled reports, and couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something fundamental, a truth hidden in the very soil of Lagos. Little did she know, the answer to her father's dilemma was sketching complex schematics for a wind-powered battery charger on the back of a discarded newspaper, just a few miles away, his stomach rumbling but his mind ablaze with untamed ingenuity. The air in Mr. Richards' executive suite crackled with the static of desperation. Another team of highly paid, international consultants, their faces pale despite the Lagos heat, admitted defeat. "It defies all known parameters, sir," one stammered, adjusting his glasses. "The power management system shows no fault in the code, yet the synchronization remains errant." Mr. Richards' expensive agbada seemed to barely contain his fury. He slammed his hand on the polished marble desk. "Parameters, gentlemen, is what I pay you billions of naira for," he thundered, his voice raw with the threat of ruin. Sarah, who had been quietly observing the spectacle, felt a surge of conviction. "Father," she began, her voice soft but resonating, "perhaps the solution isn't in more complex code, but in a simpler, deeper understanding of the environment." Her father scoffed, running a hand over his silver hair. "And what would that be, Sarah?" "A local deity. A street sorcerer." He wasn't entirely serious, but the sarcasm cut deep. Sarah held her gaze steady. "There's a young man," she said, "at the skills center in Yoba. He's exceptional. He sees things differently. He once rebuilt a complex industrial farm motor with only salvaged materials on a single piece of copper wire." Mr. Richards' laughter was hollow, bordering on hysteria. "A boy living on the street solving what the world's leading engineering firms cannot. Sarah, this is a multi-billion-naira power grid, not a broken household fan." But the seed of hope was planted, a tiny flicker of irrational possibility in the vast darkness of his mounting despair. He dismissed the idea instantly, but it lingered, a stubborn, nagging thought born of total, utter failure. A week later, with losses now crossing the 1 billion naira mark and the foreign firms packing their bags, Mr. Richard was forced to swallow his pride whole. "Bring him," he grudgingly told Sarah one cold, defeated morning. David, initially bewildered by the summons to the glittering heights of Victoria Island, found himself standing in the imposing corporate lobby, feeling like an alien. His worn buba and shokoto and threadbare sandals stood in stark contrast to the opulence of marble and glass around him. He met Sarah first, her kind, encouraging smile, a rare moment of connection in this intimidating world. Then, he was ushered into the intimidating presence of Mr. Richard, who regarded him with a mixture of evident disdain and desperate curiosity. "So, you are the genius my daughter found in the gutter," Mr. Richard said, his tone heavy with undisguised skepticism, gesturing vaguely towards a huge, complex holographic display of the smart city's power schematics. "The entire system is dead. Tell me, boy, what do you see that my experts missed?" David, unfazed by the billionaire's condescension, simply nodded, his sharp eyes instantly scanning the intricate diagrams. He didn't speak the theoretical jargon of the engineers, but his mind instantly began to visualize the physical flow, the energy pulsing through unseen pipes and conduits that snaked beneath the city's reclaimed land. The engineers, who had stayed out of curiosity, snickered, exchanging knowing, arrogant glances. This was a complete farce, a desperate last resort, and they were ready to witness its inevitable, humiliating failure, which would only reaffirm their own perceived intellectual superiority. David requested to see the physical site, the power substation on the Eco-Atlantic land, not just the digital representation. A powerful SUV, an experience as foreign as a spaceship, whisked him and Sarah across the city. The scale of the project was breathtaking, a futuristic marvel of glass and steel rising from the sea. Yet, beneath its grandeur lay a silent, immensely costly failure. While the remaining engineers pointed to sophisticated circuits, proprietary sensors, and the main control room, David knelt, not by the gleaming control panels, but by the very foundation of the substation. He ran his fingers through the mixture of sand and concrete near the main underground conduit lines, his gaze fixed on the subtle shifts in the newly created landscape. He asked for the original dredging and geological surveys, not the electrical ones. The engineers exchanged even more bewildered glances. "What does the sound composition have to do with power distribution frequency?" one mumbled incredulously. But David, his brow furrowed in fierce concentration, ignored them all. He saw what they, with all their advanced degrees, had overlooked: a slight, almost imperceptible shift in the foundation load, a faint, rhythmic vibration that pulsed not from the machinery, but from the tidal movement of the reclaimed land itself. He realized the problem wasn't electrical, it was structural and environmental. The minute, continuous flexing of the reclaimed land was subtly misaligning the extremely sensitive high-frequency inductors in the power converters. It was a rhythmic whisper from the ocean's tides, unheard by those who only listened to circuits and code. David, with a quiet confidence that completely belied his age and threadbare clothes, explained his findings in the substation control room. "The problem isn't a fault in the code or the circuits," he began, addressing Mr. Richard and the assembled, now silent engineers. "It's harmonic instability. The reclaimed sand foundation is shifting just millimeters with the tide cycles. This minute, continuous movement creates a specific, low-frequency vibration that is amplified through the main structural pillars, causing a consistent, tiny misalignment in the high-frequency power inductors. They are not broken, Mr. Richard, they are simply being shaken out of synchronization by the environment. It's a structural resonance disrupting the power frequency, a whisper from the land beneath." The senior engineers exchanged looks of profound shame, followed by dawning, undeniable comprehension. It was so blindingly simple, yet so deeply profound. They had been searching for an internal fault, a short, a spike, an error log. David had looked for the external truth. His solution was equally brilliant and practical: a series of custom, flexible load-damping isolators installed at key junction points beneath the substation, acting like sophisticated shock absorbers for the entire grid connection, neutralizing the tidal vibrations without compromising the structural integrity of the reclaimed land. He even drew the detailed schematics on a dusty window pane, his hand moving with confident precision, a flawless blueprint that promised a permanent return to power. Mr. Richard, utterly stunned by the simplicity and genius of the diagnosis, stared first at David, then at his defeated, silent engineers. The boy, the homeless student from the chaotic streets of Ajij, had solved the crisis that his world-class, multi-million-dollar team had failed to even diagnose. The silence in the room was thick with a mixture of intense awe and professional embarrassment. When the custom-engineered isolators were installed a week later, following David's precise, meticulous specifications, the Eco-Atlantic smart city flickered brilliantly to life. Lights blazed across the reclaimed landscape, machinery hummed, and the once dormant metropolis pulsed with clean, synchronized energy. Mr. Richard watched the monitors, tears welling in his eyes, tears not just of sheer financial relief, but of a profound, humbling realization. He had judged David entirely based on his appearance, his lack of academic pedigree, and his impoverished background, overlooking the brilliance that shone within him like a 1,000-watt bulb. The cost of David's elegant solution was a mere fraction of the billions Mr. Richard had been losing daily, a mere whisper compared to the total wealth he had invested. He offered David a blank check, a gesture of boundless appreciation, but David gently pushed it away. "I have a sister, Grace," he said, his eyes earnest and direct. "She needs a scholarship and a safe home. And there are many like us, Mr. Richard, across Lagos, with minds eager to build, if only given the chance." Mr. Richard, profoundly moved, realized the true, unshakable depth of David's character. It wasn't about personal wealth, it was about systemic opportunity, about recognizing raw, diamond-like potential where society often saw only poverty and noise. He not only funded Grace's full scholarship and secured David a penthouse apartment to focus on his studies, but he also established the David Initiative for Brilliant Minds, a multi-million-dollar foundation dedicated to scouting and nurturing young, uncertified technical talents from underprivileged communities across Lagos and beyond. David, humble and focused, became its first principal consultant, a living testament to what happens when raw, unburdened brilliance meets genuine belief. He continued his own engineering studies, no longer homeless, but with a new, powerful purpose, to build bridges not just of steel and power, but of opportunity and equity. The Eco-Atlantic Smart City thrived, a magnificent monument not just to Mr. Richard's vision, but to David's simple, profound ingenuity, and to the powerful, unforgettable lesson that the greatest solutions often come from the most unexpected places in the world. It serves as a constant, humming reminder that wisdom is not bound by privilege, nor genius by circumstance, but flourishes wherever a curious mind dares to observe the world around it. And so, the story of David, the boy from Ajij who saved the Lagos billionaire's empire, echoed through the bustling streets and silent corridors of power. David didn't ask for riches. He didn't demand a check, a mansion, or fame. All he wanted was a chance. A chance for his sister. A chance for children like him. A chance to lift others the way no one ever lifted him. And that's how a homeless boy from Ajij became the mind that saved the billionaire's empire. That's how a forgotten student became the architect of a future that now carries his name. Not because he was lucky, but because genius doesn't need permission to exist. It only needs one person brave enough to believe. The smart city lights came back on. But something far brighter was born that day. A movement, a foundation, a door opened for hundreds of kids who felt invisible. David rose, not for himself, but for everyone who has ever been overlooked. And his story became a reminder whispered across Lagos. Greatness has no address. Brilliance has no pedigree. And sometimes, the hero of the whole city is the one sleeping under its bridges. Now it's your turn. If David's journey inspired you, don't let it end here. Hit like, share this story, and drop a comment below. What part of David's rise touched you the most? And make sure you subscribe to Stories by the King, where impossible stories become living proof that the unseen can rise, and the forgotten can change the world.